Hey everyone, it's time for another Q&A. As usual, if you have your own questions for the next video, submit them below or on Reddit. After smoking DMT, how long does it take for tolerance to come back close to baseline? DMT doesn't really have a notable tolerance. Unlike most drugs, including drugs which function similarly to DMT, the tolerance is measured in minutes and possibly hours, not days. A lot of people report being able to use DMT many times in a day, though sometimes the latter uses are less intense, so the tolerance level isn't zero. Regardless, the tolerance level is incredibly low. What psychedelics have you tried? Which did you enjoy? And which would you be interested in trying in the future? I've only tried a handful of psychedelics, largely because it can be difficult to find time to use a drug that'll prevent me from working, though I do intend to test more in the near future. The ones I've used are 4-HO-MET, 25I-NBO-ME, and if you want to count it as a psychedelic, Salvia Divinorum. I've also used LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, though the dose I used in both cases wasn't enough to provide much in the way of effects, so I'll have to use those again. In the future, my general answer is that I intend to use effectively all psychedelics 1 to 3 times, though in the more immediate future, that'll include DMT, LSD, 2CB, 5-MeO-DMT, some other lysergamides, and psilocybin mushrooms. Speaking of salvia, I'm going to talk about my experiences with it. I used salvia on multiple occasions, and all of those uses led up to an actual breakthrough experience. The first time I encountered salvia, it was in the form of either a 20 or a 25X extract. I used that multiple times with a regular lighter and a pipe. Each time, the only effects I received were a cannabis-like feeling, and if I closed my eyes, it felt like something was grabbing the back of my head and pulling me down into an abyss. Sometimes, I'd open my eyes and have some basic visual distortions, but nothing significant, and they'd always go away within 20 minutes. I ended up leaving salvia alone for a while after those uses, but I decided to try again a few months later. This time, I had a 5X extract and plain leaf on hand. I had also switched to using a water pipe and a butane torch lighter. I used the extract and plain leaf a couple times, and once again, I couldn't really get the effects I was looking for, though I did have some interesting experiences. First, I used it, closed my eyes, and had a sort of daydream experience. I was suddenly walking along a brick street that had multiple old shops alongside it. No one else was on the street, and every shop was empty. Suddenly, what appeared to be a girl, though I couldn't see her face, ran across the street in front of me and into one of the stores. I had the feeling I should follow her, so I did. But that's when the closed eye experience ended, and I came out of it feeling much like I had just awoke from a dream. For a little while, I had a distinctly different thought process, and proceeded to type out a drug-induced perspective of the world. From there, I had another dreamlike experience, but nothing too notable. Finally, I loaded up the water pipe with as much 5X extract as I could and tried to take in as much smoke as I could. This was what finally did it. I sat back in my chair, closed my eyes, and held the smoke for about 20 seconds. By the time I stopped holding it in, I was being rocketed into a totally new environment. This is where my memory of the experience becomes very shaky. I was first taken to a large outdoor environment, and it felt like I was in a line of soldiers or part of a massive group of people. This barely lasted any time before I then jumped to being in a store-like setting surrounded by a few people. From what I could tell, I was working at the store, though it practically felt like I was inside someone's house. I can compare the environment to the tiny gift shops that you may see in old historical homes that have since become open to the public. This felt entirely normal, and for a little while, I was operating in this environment without any recollection of my actual self. For all intents and purposes, I had become someone else. Suddenly though, myself began to return, and at the exact same time, one of the walls to the store began to break down. Through the hole that was forming in the wall, I could see my actual room, though I was positioned so that I was in front of my actual body, as though I was still this other person. I then joined back with my body, slowly opened my eyes, and I felt like the room was spinning. I had just been repositioned so many times in such a realistic manner that it took a second for me to feel steady in my normal perception. I proceeded to look up toward my ceiling and partially hallucinate a woman looking down at me. She, in some telepathic manner, communicated to me that I shouldn't come back again. Beyond a few low-dose experiences since then, I've yet to attempt breaking through on the drug again. After this experience, I also had a significant reduction in anxiety and stress for 1 to 2 weeks, and I also experienced a notable mood improvement. As always, thanks for viewing, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or in the Reddit thread, which is linked below. Please submit any Q&A questions you have in the applicable Reddit thread or in the comment section on this video. Support on Patreon is greatly appreciated since it allows me to provide more drug education. You can also contribute via PayPal, Bitcoin, or YouTube on the channel page. And you can find me on Twitter at Seth A. Fitzgerald and reach out via email at thedrugclassroom@gmail.com.